Hi, I'm Rupert Bright, independent crop consultant from Shropshire, and I look after 40 clients' arable cropping needs, mainly wheat, barley, maize, sugar beet, fodder beet, potatoes. Hi, this is a crop of Wolverine winter wheat drilled in late September 2020 following oilseed rape. There are several pests that we had to consider taking the risk out of the equation for the farmer, and that is slugs initially. After following oilseed rape, the crop is very susceptible to slugs. So we assessed that risk and then applied ferric phosphate. The second risk was aphid transmitted virus, barley yellow dwarf virus, and having lost the neonicotinoid seed dressings, we're now left with pyrethroids to try and control those. The good thing about this crop, Wolverine variety, is that it is resistant to BYDV, so we didn't have to spray it. So although we're losing crop protection products, the neonics was deemed to disorient bees. Through plant breeding, we're able to quickly adapt to change and grow a resistant variety. This is a much later drilled crop of wheat. It's a milling variety called Zayat, and this is drilled after maize. And you can see from the ground cover that it's been eaten or decimated by rabbits. The financial consequence of this will probably be £200 an acre to the farmer. The only reasonable means of controlling is by rifle shooting them, mostly done at night with licensed operators. It is a rare occasion now to have fields eaten this badly by rabbits, because normally the control is much better. But this is newly rented land, not familiar with the problems here, so the rabbits have got on top of the situation. The other way is to go around the hedgerows and with ferrets and net the rabbits. We're going to put some early nitrogen on this crop to try and get it to grow away, but there will be severe yield penalties to the farmer. Yeah, we're just going to add to that wheat and barley are the main problems for rabbits. Other crops such as triticale, oats, potatoes, peas, beans, linseed aren't affected so badly just because the rabbits don't like the taste. Yeah, we're in another field of wheat now. This is a second wheat drilled in late October, and this was severely affected by slugs because the land is heavy and it was drilled into cloddy conditions. Culturally, we can control slugs by rolling the land with Cambridge rolls, ribbed rolls, and that consolidates the seedbed and makes it more difficult for the slugs to travel around. This field wasn't able to be rolled, so we had a battle with slugs, and we had to apply ferric phosphate 3 times, 5 kilograms each time. Previously, in 2020, we were using metaldehyde slug pellets, but in this area it was getting into watercourses, and the United Utilities were paying us a subsidy not to use this pellet. We've now decided just to use ferric phosphate, the organic, environmentally friendly pellets exclusively, and to drop the use of metaldehyde. We can't see any shredding much here now, so we've done a good job. The slugs would literally shred the veins between the leaves, and the loss of photosynthetic area would be considerable. Okay, we're now in a crop of winter oilseed rape, which was drilled last August 2020, and it's a variety called Ambassador. So there's 3 things pests that have been an issue to date. First one was slugs. Although the seedbed was consolidated, the slugs had a field day, and we applied ferric phosphate to try and control those, which did a reasonable job. And then secondly was cabbage stem flea beetle. Because we've lost Modesta neonicotinoid seed dressing, we now have to be reliant on pyrethroid insecticides. So we sprayed this at expanded cotyledon for flea beetle because damage was evident, and shot holing damage, that is little holes in the leaves, and it really peppered this crop like a shotgun when it badly affected plant here. You can see the remnants of some of the shot hulling in that plant there. If we cut the plant in the middle, we may even find some grubs, but that's the test. I can't see one in there, but you would see grubs in the stem as a worst case scenario. So if we go around here, this side, this half of the field was not sprayed the second time, and we can see we've lost the crop completely. So we're now left with 7 hectares viable and 9.7 hectares unviable. We're learning a lot how to control this pest through cultural means. Companion cropping is one idea. Drilling into not too special a seed bed, so leaving the wheat stubble high, a colour that confuses the flea beetle. Some people are broadcasting spring barley to cause confusion. Spraying in total darkness achieves better levels of success with the pyrethroids, as well as mixing the insecticide with methylated rapeseed oil. So we're learning a lot about controlling this pest, although plant breeding will hopefully find us the answer eventually. For pests going forward in this crop, we will have possibility of pigeons, although they're not too bad a problem this year. The possibility of pollen beetle, but we'll assess those risks, and if the pest meets threshold, then it might require future spray. The third pest that we forgot to mention is aphids again in this crop in the autumn, and they transmit virus, turnip yellows virus. Through plant breeding, the variety ambassador is resistant to turnip yellow virus, which is a good step forward, and hopefully through plant breeding we can become master of pests. We're now in a field of fodder beet. This is grown for anaerobic digestion, methane burning to create electricity. This crop has also been affected by the ban of neonicotinoid seed dressings, and we can see this plant here has Beet Western Yellows virus, as well as a level of disease, Cercosporium and so on. Obviously this is very late harvested beet, probably the last in Shropshire, so I just thought I'd show you this disease and how devastating it has been really nationally, not only to fodder beet crops but to sugar beet crops as well. We can look at forecasting going forward to how we manage this year's crop, and Broomsbarn have forecasted a much lower incidence of virus in 2021 than there was in 2020. Although we've sprayed crops with insecticides, the pyrethroids were proven to be ineffective. Timing of Topeki or Biscaya was critical, and some of the growers who I said your beet needs spraying for aphids now and jumped to it and got the job done that evening didn't have a problem. Those farmers who left 3 or 4 days for aphid populations to increase had devastating financial consequences. Okay, we're at a potato store now. I can't show you any growing crops of potatoes, obviously, because they haven't been planted yet. So I'm just going to talk about the main pests of potatoes at Suckleys. Peach potato aphid, Mysis perisci, is a green wingless aphid, and this is a big problem to us, especially in seed production, because it transmits virus. We've got virus Y and potato leaf roll virus being the most problematic. So the seed crops of potatoes, which we grow in Wales at high altitude, again because there's less prevalence of aphids at high altitude, they're sprayed routinely every week for aphids to stop the transmission of virus Y and leaf roll. We're using mineral oils as an alternative to insecticides to help combat resistance. This is deemed to cleanse the feeding mouth parts of the aphid so that it has no virus in its mouth to transmit. Moving on, other pests. potato cyst nematode is a major pest, and it's a soil-borne pest. And I was just talking to Ali that 29 years ago, when I started potato agronomy, about 5% of land in this area was infested, and now it's probably more like 40%. Hugely expensive to control, probably £300 an acre using a nematicide called nemathorin. We've lost a lot of chemicals through being banned. Vidate, Temic, Mocap have all been banned. We're now left with nemathorin and a new one called Velum Prime. Each 5-acre grid section of land is tested and sent off to a laboratory so we can assess the risk. We also have some varieties of potatoes that are useful in preventing its multiplication. We have a crisping variety called Arsenal that seems to, although you're growing a crop, prevent the multiplication. So it's a useful armoury in our toolbox to have a variety such as that. Colorado beetle, we don't have those in this country, fortunately. They are not notifiable pests, and if anyone sees one, they should be immediately reported to DEFRA. Though I've seen what they can do in America, and they literally strip the potato plant to a skeleton. Over there they're using GM Colorado resistant varieties. Wireworm, we can assess that risk. It's mostly a problem when you're growing potatoes after turf. Nemathorin does have 70% control, but it doesn't take out the risk. So you're best to grow a few cereal crops after grass before you plant a crop of potatoes. Cutworm, that can be a problem in dry land, unirrigated potatoes, if it's very dry end of June. So we just assess that risk and apply a pyrethroid if necessary. It's very rare that we need to treat. Slugs, you don't need to treat processing potatoes, crisping potatoes too much, because the slugs don't like the taste. But if we were growing a variety like Maris Piper, we would have to slug pellet routinely. Internal rust spot and sprang, these are problems caused by free-living nematodes, and we have to look at a potato variety's susceptibility to sprang and decide whether we need to treat with Velum Prime, which is a liquid injected into the furrow, into the ridge that the potatoes are dropping into at planting. I can't show you a growing crop of maize yet because they're not drilled until April, but this is a maize pit for anaerobic digestion. Only 3 pests that really concern us are wireworm, again, such as good potatoes. After turf is most problematic. Slugs, very rarely do we see a problem with slugs, so we'll have to require pelleting. And then European corn borer is becoming a bit of concern, but it's only really in southern counties. Most noticeably, which is quite interesting, in the flight path to Heathrow Airport, where they're dropping off the landing gear. Okay, this is typical application machinery on this farm for crop spraying. We have 3 Bateman RB35s, and they each have 2 front-mounted Stocks Pro 65 applicators for throwing slug pellets. 36-metre wide booms, and the slug pelleters throw, I suppose, 18 metres each side. Okay, so we're just going to talk about insecticides and molluscicides that we use. So we'll just talk about these more cultural means, mineral oil and orange extract oil. This is cleansing the feeding parts, the aphid's mouth, and so it's not able to transmit to virus to seed potatoes. And this, I believe, is the orange extract oil from South Africa, is something they just don't like the taste of it. The orange essence overpowers them. These are commonly used insecticides. These 2 are used on carrots for willow aphids and for willow aphids primarily. These are the bog standard cheap pyrethroids that we use, lambda cyperethrin. That one's slightly more expensive because it's encapsulated with sun lotion. And then in cyst and topeki, they're commonly used potato insecticides. This one we're allowed to use on beet. This is Maverick, slightly more bee friendly. Always remember when you're using insecticides that bees forage above 10 degrees, or sometimes honeybees below that. But this is supposed to be more bee friendly for controlling pollen beetle.